The world as we know it has many borders. Anything from the squares of the US to the better borders of the world to the slightly worse borders of the world. um, every country has something that needs to be fixed. And so I step in today. I'll make this a series on my channel where I fix the borders of the world in the way that I think would benefit the most people, that will make the least people angry, and that will just genuinely be the best way forward. So, this today I'm going to talk about 3 or 4, depending on how you count, continents: Oceania, North and South America, and also, you know, Antarctica. And everything's in Swedish because I don't know how to fix that, and I'm not gonna do the effort to do that. So my first change. See, here's Oceania. You can see that right here. This here is the Greater Oceanic Empire. Basically, all of Oceania in one, plus a little tiny some parts of Australia, because ignore that. Some parts of Australia as well, because I figured that they would need that. It would be a good thing. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, both of these countries are, or no, cities, are within the Greater Oceanic Empire. Um, Also, North Island here in New Zealand is also a part of the Greater Oceanic Empire. Um, Hawaii, also part of the Great Oceanic Empire, and Easter Island as well, probably. My point is, like, this entire area is part, and also New Papua New Guinea, everything here. Right, so after that we have the new country Old Zealand, which is essentially just Southern Island, whose capital is now Gore, which is right here. Um, Basically Southern Island plus Antarctica, because that is how Old Zealand would look like. Also, I forgot to say the capital of the Greater Oceanic Empire. It is in Nauru. It is Anabar in Nauru. That's the capital of the Greater Oceanic Empire. Obviously, if any of the areas within this would have a capital, it would obviously be in Nauru. I'm sorry, I will have to remove these because I'm new to this system, so I'll have to remove the countries after I've shown you them. But just still keep them in mind. You can remember. I would have wanted to see like the full world map when I'm done with it, but that won't work because I am too bad at this, which is the actual reason. After that, we have this part of Australia, which is now the Emu Empire. You may or may not know that there was actually an actual war that Australia fought against emus, which Australia actually lost. And funnily enough, usually or often at least, when countries lose wars, there are territorial changes, but there weren't any territorial changes after the Emu War, so I have fixed that. So now we actually have the first country to be run by non-humans, so that's pretty cool. So the last part of Australia, which is essentially this, is called Communist Middle-Aged Zealand, because it's a communist country. I feel like Australia really needs a bit of that, and it's not Old Zealand because it's gone. It's not. Oh no, Old Zealand is this. Antarctica plus Southern Island. New Zealand is, the old country, and so this is also Zealand, So this is middle-aged Zealand, and that's about it for Oceania. This is actually the French Guianese Empire, because if you didn't know, if the majority of the people speak one language, and you like, the capital would obviously be Cayenne, right here. Essentially what you do is, if there are a lot of people here that speak, French here, there is English, there are so many languages, except, mostly Spanish here. What you want to do is that you make those that are actually majority into the minority, because this is the French, this is the official language is French, because this is the French Guianese Empire, right? So the Venezuelans are stuck speaking French, essentially. Secondly, this, in other words, modern-day Brazil modern day Peru, modern day Bolivia, modern day Ecuador, and modern day Colombia are all they're all the Amazon Empire, because some parts of the Amazon are in the French Guianese Empire, but large parts of the Amazon is actually in the Amazon Empire, and not a company, actually, not this time. Maybe if I do another one of these, maybe the company will own the rainforest, but in this scenario, right? This is the Amazon Empire. In other words, the official language is not Spanish, like in this part. And also, I know that Brazil and its neighbors get very well along, so there's just that as well. And it's not Portuguese or Brazilian Portuguese or whatever either. It's actually Tupian, which I did not look up on Wikipedia just now. The official language of this empire, the Amazon Empire, is Tupian. So once again, turning the majority into the minority is always a good thing when it comes to this. So that just leaves this in South America: Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and that's pretty much it. Can this possibly be either? I feel like if someone were to assume, considering what the other things I've done are so far, what I would do with this is either that I turn it into some minority thing, or that I turn it into like I don't know, Greater Uruguay because it's small. That is actually not what we're doing. What this is, and I don't know why it's messed up, but you can see the borders essentially. These are the slightly greater Falklands. So it's actually the Falkland Islands. So this is essentially a slightly bigger version of the UK territory, or whatever, the Falkland Islands. So they did a bit of colonialism again. That just kind of happens sometimes, and it led to this. And I feel like my division of South America is actually pretty cool, pretty realistic, very fair to the peoples that live here. Moving on. Basically, the Aztecs are really cool, so I figured the smoothest way to handle this is to make an Aztec empire. But then I realized that someone who often gets forgotten or left out, aka the great nation of Liechtenstein, they felt like they weren't happy with their colonial adventures, aka absolutely nothing, so I gave them the new Aztec Empire. Also, Mexico City isn't actually called Mexico City, it's called Tenochtitlan again, as we all know that it used to be called. Basically, we have a similar situation in the old Mayan area. Honduras and El Salvador are not part of it. Let me just fix that real quick. There we go. Perfect. The borders are absolutely perfect now. Essentially, sometimes colonies want colonies as well, as America have done historically. So this is the Mayan Empire, but it's not actually the Mayan Empire, it's actually part of the communist Middle-aged Zealand, aka this part of Australia. Not this part, not this part. That's the Emu Empire, and that's the Greater Oceanic Empire. Don't forget that. El Salvador is the epitome. El Salvador is essentially how a country should be in all ways. El Salvador is the epitome of how a country should be. So I will not change El Salvador, don't worry about that. Nicaragua has to change its name because it's too close to a word that I can't say. Okay, so, this new country, which we all know and love, El Salvador is still a country, keep that in mind, El Salvador is unchanged. It's actually not a colony, contrary to popular belief. It's called Montaña Verde, or something, I don't know. And essentially, it's to get rid of the definitely 100% problematic name Nicaragua, which is too close to something which I cannot say once again. They didn't copy Montenegro, which also sounds somewhat sus according to some. Once again, according to some, not necessarily to me. First off, I see Bermuda over here. That's Bermuda. Once again, I don't know how to change the language. Just ignore the language. Basically, the Bermuda Triangle wasn't big enough, in my opinion. In my personal opinion, once again, this is how I would solve the crisis of the world. There we go. Okay, so yeah, shut up, G-Hub. The Bermuda Triangle wasn't big enough, in my opinion. So this is the new Bermuda Triangle. I think I did a good job. Okay, so basically all of these countries are within the Bermuda Triangle. Grenada, since I drew the borders where they are, Grenada is still independent. Don't ask me how. I just wanted to make sure that you could see Grenada's borders. Basically, this territory isn't claimed, or not all of this territory is claimed by them. So Grenada was did a bit of empire building. This is part of them. Just actually, this is also Grenada. The southern half there. Um, basically, essentially, Grenada owns a lot of this, not all of it, because under international law, blah blah blah. They had to expand a few miles, something. I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers there, but you always have to have a bit of like sea area where the country is. So they have that sea area plus a teeny tiny bit more where it says Karibiska havet. That's the weirdest pronunciation of that I have ever said. It was with a heavy accent from somewhere, I forgot where it was in Sweden. Now we move on to the not so Lone Star State, the US. Because it's not a state. The Lone Star State is Texas, and we're going to get to them. Oh boy, are we going to get to them. I already have a plan for how we're going to actually fix Texas. So the first step is that Texas and Oklahoma are now one and the same, called Texas, because I know that Oklahoma, deep down, they might not admit it, okay, but deep down Oklahoma wants to be Texas, because that is how the world works, just as Liechtenstein conquered large parts of Mexico recently. The new country, because the US is gonna split up. Let's be serious. I have to split the US. You'll see how I will do it soon. The first nation that the US splits into is Calexas, because as we all know, Texas plus Oklahoma, because Oklahoma is part of Texas, and California are actually the two states in the entire US with the best attitude towards one another. Let's all just face the facts before we say anything else. Fact is, these two have the absolute best chemistry within the entire US. So a new state called Calexas, which is this territory right here, it can't go wrong. Honestly, it can't, because this is the American accent. It can't go wrong, bruv. Can't go wrong, as they say in Texas. Can't go wrong, bruv. Can't this possibly go wrong, bruv, as they say once again in Calexas, both parts, because they have that accent in both parts. Right, so basically, Mexico, they lost some territory here, so they had to gain territory as well, but they didn't. Mexico is gone. So is Arizona and New Mexico, and out of the ashes rise New Mexico, because as we all know, there's a place called Mexico, there's a place called New Mexico, and now there used to be, and now there's a place called New Mexico. So after that, we have this territory. You may recognize it. Usually, some parts over here are usually part of this union, or should I say not union, as well. Basically, this great new country which has formed after the fall of the US is called slavery, because they decided that would be the most fitting name for the US fell apart, and this is what happened basically. So here is slavery. All right, so after that we have this area, which isn't quite New England. The area New England, that's an actual area. It's not a state, it's an area. It's almost New England, and since it isn't New England, they had to pick a different name, so it's called Slightly Greater Rhode Island, essentially. If you didn't know, Rhode Island is a state over there, and so I figured this is slightly greater than Rhode Island, and this is the Slightly Greater Rhode Island. Does that make sense? Good. So then we come to this area. Now I didn't quite follow the state lines because it's a natural thing, right? So this place is just called desert because on the map it looks like desert. When I think of the desert in America, I usually think of like this and this and this. But on the map this sort of looks like a desert. So this surely this place must be a desert, and thereby it's called desert. So that's the new Russian border with Canada, because Alaska is now once again part of Russia. I am going to come to Europe and Asia, sooner or later in this series. So, if it is well received, I think it will be. I think I'm doing a great job so far, considering what we're seeing right here. Um, it's back in the Russian hands. It could shift in the future. There is no definitive proof of anything. So last we have a big chunk here. It's actually all one country now. So this is a pretty powerful country. I feel like there are many big cities such as Indianapolis and Minneapolis. Why they're called basically the same thing, I don't know. Also Kentucky is there, so they got some KFC. I don't know. Also Ohio. Oh, hold on. They don't have Ohio. They don't have Ohio. Because Ohio is Ohio. Ohio is independent, and Ohio is Ohio. Okay. Um, because we all know why, to be honest. Let's all be honest about it. We all know why Ohio is independent. No, don't. We all know why it's independent. Anyways, this place is called Fargo Movie because there's a city over here called Fargo, and there's a movie which is called Fargo, and they didn't want to name themselves based on just one little measly town, right? That sounds stupid. So they named themselves after a movie, which hasn't been done before, which means that they make history. So this place is called Fargo Movie. Basically, the rest here goes to Canada. Except, there is one difference in Canada. They got this territory, so they should be happy for that. They also got Greenland, so they should be happy for that. However, surprisingly, there's a big independence movie in Quebec. However, what happens if Ontario breaks away? I think it would be called Quebec, because that's roughly how that's supposed to be pronounced. Not the same as Quebec, that's Quebec. With the E sounds different, because if you look at the apostrophe there and there, they're different. Basically, Quebec wants independence. They don't get it, okay? They don't get it. However, Ontario, which is no longer called Ontario, it's called Quebec, gets independence, and it's called Quebec. So that's the Americas fixed. I also fixed Antarctica and Oceania. Next time, I'm thinking we only have Eurasia and Africa left. And I think that everyone's really waiting for this one. Maybe I can make them all in one. I am unsure, honestly. Maybe I'll have to. Maybe I have to really be considerate when I do Europe, because I'm from Europe and I should know it the best, right? But that's my redesign of the Americas, and also Oceania and Antarctica, even if you can't see it right now. If you appreciated my hard work, especially if there are any Americans watching, please do. This is the thumbnail, by the way. There we go. That's the thumbnail. If there are any Americans watching, by the way, please do comment how you feel as you come, from your state. Maybe you're from Washington and you're right on the border here. Maybe you're from Oklahoma. Who knows? Maybe you're from slavery, or maybe you're from the cursed place, Ohio. Who knows? Who knows these days? Who knows where you're from? Wherever you're from, please tell me if I changed your country. Please tell me how you feel, especially how you feel, how you think other people would feel, how you think the minorities feel, because some of these are clearly meant to appease the minorities, such as the Bermuda Triangle. There are a lot of merfolk out there which really just wanted to expand the Bermuda Triangle, and so I did. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you're happy with the changes, honestly. Hope you're happy with the changes. Yeah, that's the video. Bye!